Good morning. It's another easy, breezy Monday morning in the Federation of St. Christopher Nevis. We want to wish our listeners listening on the various platforms you're locked into Win FM 98.9 and you're listening to Voices, today's episode. My name is Socrates. I'll be your host for today's program. We have a very esteemed guest in the studio, so we shall introduce after we pause for a word from our sponsors and get right in the mix of things. Once again, good morning to our viewers and listeners. Welcome once again to today's program of Voices. It's a platform where people are encouraged to call into the program and weigh in on the various topics and issues. You're free to air your views, make suggestions, have a cool, dialogue, but we ask that we keep it kind of respectable. Today, in the studios, we're going to choose a topic that highlights our heritage. We'll seek to highlight some of our heritage by way of giving due recognition to our many sons and daughters of the soil who have distinguished themselves in their chosen fields of endeavor and in so doing contributed in a significant way to the overall development of our country from both sides of the aisle. We have in the studios with us today to help me with this topic a very distinguished young man himself, Mr. Michael S. Blake, an educator. And we'll be looking at many persons who, over the many years, have made their contributions, whether via culture, education, social development, sports, etc., try to identify them. We will ask the public to weigh in with their opinions. Let's have a discussion, a discourse. We know throughout the world today there's an awareness in terms of rebranding. We've seen the U.S. they taking down some statues that reflect a certain aspect of the history that's not very, I would say, well received. We here in the colonial, what shall I say, space, the many islands in the region, we would have most of our streets and some statues, iconic buildings named after persons from the colonial era. We think it's time that we look at the contributions of our own people over the many, many years and honor them by renaming some streets, some buildings. We know on Nevis, we have the El Camino Willett Cricket Stadium. We have, I think, over in is it Molyneux, the Edgar Gilbert
Sporting Complex?
Right? Mm-hmm. Recently we had the one in St. Peter's named after the footballer Atiba Harris. Yeah. And I don't know if everything is Sandy Point. Sandy Point claimed to be like the town, but I don't know if anything named after anyone from Sandy Point. This morning I was speaking to a gentleman who has a lot of information. His name is Emmanuel Hendrickson. We know him as Doc, Super Doc, etc., etc. And I try to get him to come on the show and join me, and he says, no, don't come for me, etc. So anyway, we have with us in the studio Mr. Michael S. Blake, and we're going to give him a chance to make the case in terms of his knowledge about the persons from the field of education and various disciplines in St. Kitts Nevis who have made a contribution, who should be deemed worthy or seem worthy of being recognized by some way, some measure, as to the contribution. So, Mr. Blake, Welcome once again to the studios of Win FM.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be back here. I have been here several times before, both as guest and as host, and it's always a pleasure to share with the public at large and to learn from them in the process of discussing topics which are of national import. Some of them, of course, extend to beyond the borders of our federation and include that which is of regional and international significance. I want to give Almighty God thanks and praise for his extremely good mercies towards me and allowing me to retain more than just a modicum of sanity, health, and still in possession, as it were, of all my mental faculties,
Yes.
especially when I recognize that we are swimming, as it were, in a sea of disease, disaster, death, and destruction. And so I want to thank God for having taken me abroad to Cuba to serve the Federation for a couple of years, and now I'm back in the Federation. I'm looking forward to continuing my service in whatever area is deemed necessary or available. I do believe that we have come to a point in 2020 when we not only have the ability, but we have the duty to write, R-I-G-H-T, our history, and to rewrite, W-R-I-T-E, that history, in a manner that does not distort, corrupt, or destroy the facts. In other words, in the attempt to write and rewrite our history, we must stick to the truth. We must be guided by the facts as they are, even if they are unpalatable. And certainly our history is full of experiences which are far from palatable. But I believe that whereas error needs artificial support, truth can stand alone. And so once we stick to the truth in attempting to write, and this is my theme, writing, R-I-G-H-T, and rewriting, W-R-I-T-I-N-G, our history, once we stick to the truth, then we would have done that which we are called upon to do.
Okay.
And I also believe, Socrates, that there are a number of ways, a number of avenues through which we must travel in order to engage in this exercise of writing and rewriting our history. One of them, of course, has to do with our own local environment in terms of our buildings, our streets, our facilities, our sites, and even, if you ask me, our roundabouts. I have been discussing with the head of the traffic department the merits and demerits of naming our roundabouts as we enter this process of recognizing those of our local vintage, those members of our society who would have made indelible contributions, sterling contributions in various fields of endeavor, persons whose individual and collective contribution have shaped our civilization here in St. Kitts and Nevis, have influenced the development of our federation. I believe we need to recognize these persons in tangible ways. I am concerned, very concerned, and I've voiced this concern for years, that very, very few of our students, a very small percentage, a very small number of our students, and to me, young people are epitomized in students. When we speak of young people, you address me as a young person, and I laugh because my eldest son, I don't consider him to be young anymore, and he's just about 30. That's my own idiosyncratic view.
Not a problem.
But I believe that students in school really are the essence and the quintessence, the epitome of youth. And I'm concerned that these young people are very, very ignorant of the contributions of some of these same individuals who I believe really need to be recognized in a very concrete way.
I'll ask you now, where would you lay that blame?
Certainly, it is an issue which has been discussed in various fora. I believe that the formal education system has a very critical role in this respect. I believe that systemically, we should be systematically teaching our youngsters from primary school right through to tertiary level. We should be instilling in them the value, the worth, the indispensable nature of the contributions of our local people. That is not being done. I don't think it is being done deliberately. I don't think it is being done incidentally. And so a lot of students go through the formal years of education. They graduate with so-called good grades, but yet they are utterly ignorant of basic information of our local history. Now, there's been lots of talk about introducing black history in our curriculum, of teaching local history to our young people. And I think that has been more talk than action. I think it's time that we translate that rhetoric into reality. I think it's time that we begin to move from simply conceptualizing and formulating ideas and to actually put them into practice.
That was one of the questions I would have had in anticipating our discussion today. The modality, the way forward, where do we go from here, once we would have identified the need for exactly what you described?
I think it calls in a number of areas, because we have evolved, Socrates, in my view, from a point where power at one point flowed from various centers. We have evolved from that situation to the one we have now, where all power is concentrated in government, and if you're not careful, it is concentrated in one man. And so because almost all authority and significant power, in my view, is now vested in governmental authorities, the legally constituted authority, we have to look to them to make a lot of critical decisions. And so I believe that it's incumbent upon those who constitute the political directorate to ensure that these matters, including the content of our curriculum, of course it must be in tandem with what are required regionally, the state level, and internationally, because we are part of a much wider world. But I believe it is the duty of those who sit astride the levers of power, who exercise that power, to ensure that which our young people, our students are taught, really has relevance, has meaning, and is taught in such a way that it engenders that kind of patriotism, that kind of love for country, that makes them want to not only remember the information, but to act on it, and indeed to make things better than they are. Okay. So that I believe that there are a number of individuals, and I have some names here, who we need to begin with immediacy to begin to recognize by attaching their names to certain streets, roundabouts, buildings, schools, etc. In fact, I might say here that a former Minister of Education had asked me to begin the process of trying to identify names of persons for whom we could name all of our schools.
So you would have had this conversation before?
Definitely.
Which is perfect.
Unfortunately, and I don't think anybody would argue it's fortunate, but unfortunately, before that could have come to fruition, we had other issues which took prominence, which took preeminence, and so that faded into the background, as it were. I am hoping that now is the time for us to resuscitate that discussion.
Okay. I have a list of names here myself, so I'm gonna give you the lead on this and see if we are comparative in terms of some of the names I've identified. You being an educator, you having had this conversation before, you'll be more versed.
Right.
And
but my list is not confined to those whose forte would have been education, whose contribution would have been education. It spans all the various areas and disciplines there.
By way of laying the foundation, I'm going to pause right at the moment for a word from our sponsors. And when we get back, we go into the details of identifying those who you think will be worthy of that, right?
Definitely.
So we'll be right back after a word from the sponsors.
On me clothes and me looking well dapper. Stepping out the night with Ramona and Sasha. Run to the fridge for me secret trick. 2 buckle of Magnum, now everything set. You don't know one girl can't manage me when me under me Magnum all 2 or 3. Biggie a buckle to me granddaddy, cause later on tonight he might expect a lady. You want the energy for do the things that you do. Drop the Magnum with the vigor and glue. Ladies, give you the vibe it more quick and all them on them. Yeah, that's strong extra live. Magnum tonic wine, energy when you need it.
Like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/ramsupermarket. Follow us on Twitter, www.twitter.com/ramsupermarket. And subscribe to us on YouTube, www.youtube.com/ramsupermarket.
Oh, we're back in the studios of NFM 98.9, and today's episode of Voices, we have in the studio Mr.
Michael Blake.
Michael S. Blake. We're discussing issues of heritage and trying to identify some of our icons. I can use the word icons, whom we deem worthy of recognition, where we are naming certain street building facilities after them. So Mr. Blake was on the verge of identifying those he think should be mentioned.
Definitely. In the process of doing that, I'd like to suggest that some of the facilities that are already named might very well be renamed. But we first have to find out the history of that particular individual.
Correct.
For example, I think of George Street in Newtown.
I have it here too.
I am not so sure for whom that George is named.
I'm
Is
guessing King George, maybe?
Is it, sorry?
I'm guessing King George.
One of the King Georges. But
Yes.
somebody said, you sure it's not George Butler?
No.
In other words,
it would have been George Butler Street.
we really have to find out for who these individuals are.
Mm-hmm.
And irrespective of color, if that individual, if the contribution was made in good faith, was made to uplift the conditions of the population at the time, then perhaps we can let it stay. But certainly, and I know, and I don't want to call any names now, but certainly there are a number of streets in particular, villages, parishes, which are named for individuals whose record is one of shame and failure. But because of the socio-political conditions at the time,
Impact, okay.
right, these facilities were named for those individuals. I think with expeditious immediacy, some of these need to be renamed.
George Street,
Right.
let's hear you.
Now, for example, I find that we have in St. Kitts nothing named for Marcus of the Woods. Nothing named for Beto Douglas. Nothing named for our first local governor, Milton Pentonville Allen. Remember before him, he was preceded by Sir Fred Phillips, who was the first black governor. He's coming from another Caribbean territory, St. Vincent. But Milton P. Allen was the first local governor of the state of St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla. I find there is nothing named for him. I don't like that. I think it's time we find something to name for him. I have a Sir Probin Innes, Elimat.
Well, let me cut you mid-stride.
Sure.
I was suggesting last week, because Rascal and I were discussing, I would think that George Street
George Street.
can be easily named King Elimat Avenue.
But of course.
That's just to interject into your
Definitely. Edema Edwards,
yeah.
Constance Mitchum, Barker and Kelly. And I'm not so sure if we fully recognize the value, the contribution that Barker and Kelly have made, being a local peer, a local duo of entrepreneurs who have done well. Because our history is littered with attempts by local people to engage in business, especially at a certain level, moving beyond the mere village shop.
Village shop, yes.
And I think Barker and Kelly are pioneers in that area. And I think they've also been making some...
They set an example, because just last week we had a discussion in the circus. We were talking about the fact that we have many other nationalities
Mm-hmm.
who are now coming to the country and they have a platform where they take up all the mom and pop shops.
Right.
And we don't have anybody we can identify with today to go and shop with, like back in Kelly.
That is true.
So that is one of the concerns. We appreciate the contribution of like the Horsford, etc., and the Rams have made. But in terms of the back and Kelly, the model they set, we need to go back to that if we need to invest in ourselves.
And I'd like to see some of this renaming, naming and renaming, as an attempt, as part of the attempt to write and rewrite our history, being done while the persons are still alive.
That is correct.
All right, so that both Kenneth Kelly and Alfonso Barker, who are not young men by any stretch, for example, if we are going to decide that we're going to honor them in that way, it should be done sooner than later. I think of Rita Cable, first female principal and longest serving principal of the Venerable Bastia High School. I think of Winston Zach Nisbet. Fighting Hunks. I think of Gillian Musgrave Archibald and Marcel Liebert.
Definitely.
And both of them, by the way, were not only very efficient and successful teachers, but we know, of course, of their contribution in the field of sports, particularly
yes.
netball. Yeah. And, of course, Marcella not only went on to be a Speaker of the House and an elected Member of Parliament, she was also a lawyer. So I think Edgar Challenger, there is nothing named for Edgar Challenger. I am not so sure if we understand the contribution that Edgar Challenger made to our political history.
But it goes to the curriculum that you spoke about. That's not being tailored to our students' understanding of a history or culture as it relates to St. Kitts and Nevis. You speak about the wider region, but we are focusing today mainly on St. Kitts and Nevis. I understand.
But definitely, I'm limiting, I'm zeroing in as it were on the Federation. I think of John Charles in education, for example. He's now hospitalized. He's now at JNF. And his contribution to education. Tapley Seaton himself, being the first and youngest Attorney General of Independent St. Kitts and Nevis, and the youngest in the Commonwealth at the time, and of course, who was now, apart from his many contributions to various community organizations and groups, he is now, of course, our Attorney General. I think of Melvin Edwards, Alfonso Bridgewater. Listen, I have a whole list of names here. It will take a long time to go through them. If you wish, and by the way, these names are going to be submitted to the appropriate authorities for consideration for naming, like I said, schools, streets, buildings, and roundabouts.
Okay.
I'm thinking, for example, as a concrete example, we are about to complete the new printery on Church Street. I don't think it should just be called the government printery. I think it should be named after one of these individuals whom I have on my list, or who maybe you have on yours, or who we are not even thinking about, but whose name is also worthy of being mentioned. And I'm thinking that when that building is being opened, which should be sometime later this year, that instead of it being christened the government printery, it should actually be bearing the name of one of these stalwart contributors. Of course, I think that also that all the community centers should be named. I heard the new minister for the new representative for Central Bastia, the new Minister of Education, speak of an intention to rebuild or to put a new edifice on the spot where the Mutual Improvement Society, the MIS, once stood.
Okay.
I think that should be named. If that in fact comes to fruition, it should be named. So somebody suggested it should be named the Marcus Garvey Center, since Marcus Garvey, of course, himself spoke there way back in 1937. But certainly, that should be named. I think all our community centers and health centers should also be named. And we have a number of streets, like I said. Once the research is done into for whom the street is named, what was that particular person's what was that individual's contribution, then we enter into a process of renaming same.
That was true with the approach.
Yeah. So, by the way, are folks allowed to call in?
Yes, we can open the lines
okay.
after the next
Right.
station call.
Yeah, so I want to make those comments and await your further
Okay.
input.
My list was not as extensive what as yours, but I have some names I thought would be worthy of mention. You mentioned one in particular, that was El Sonero. I have an opinion that George Street, as I said earlier, can easily be named after him. I'm looking for a Kenrick George's Music Academy. We have contributions from Miss Pamela Wall, Lady Hilda Lawrence. These are educators in terms of music. We have Wingrove Hicks, who over the many, many decades has made his contribution not only as a musician, but as a band leader, tent leader, contributed in no small way to the development of carnival and culture. We have Dr. Irvin Sweeney, who was like the main rival of King Elimat back in the day. You had Elimat from the Newtown area representing. We're talking about a local.
Definitely, yeah.
And then King Sweeney, the Bacchanal, and that gave.
Sweeney from the west.
From the west.
And Elimat from
so
the east.
At, if you're going to name something after Elimat in the east, you get Dr. Irvin Sweeney on something from the west. We have Kim Collins. We have the stadium named after him. We had Edgar Gilbert. That's named after him. Andrew Weeks from Sandy Point. He emerged, and I think he advanced to be the first Kitchen to function as an umpire.
At the regional level?
Yes. We have two stadiums in Sandy Point. We have the two playing fields. And we have, of course, Mr. Kenrick Clifton, who is now a councilman in New England. He made his contribution in track and field. He was like a 400 yards runner, etc. And Walton Shield, Field of Calypso.
That's King Starshield.
King Starshield. I mentioned a while ago Kenrick George's. From Nevis, I'm not sure if it is Clefton or Crefton Warner. We were talking about the contribution of King Miko. And his arch rival at the time, this and that. My apologies, so I don't remember your name at the moment, but King this and that.
That's not Scarborough?
Yes, Keith Scarborough.
Keith Scarborough.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And I think Bruce Kerrich, we mentioned Bruce Kerrich. We're looking at people who would have made a contribution that generation now don't have any clue as to who they are.
Right.
And it would be incumbent. You mentioned that the government, etc. The job is yours and mine to bring this to the attention. And there's a call on lines to speak. Call your live on voices. Could they call your live on voices?
Yeah, good morning, Socrates.
Good morning, lovely lady. How are you?
Is that the historian, Mr. Blake?
Mr. Blake, Mr. Michael S. Blake, to be precise.
Michael Blake. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Definitely
Yeah,
giving.
the other day I was trying.
thanks.
I remember doing some historical research for you
Volume.
with migration. I think Mr. Stapleton did the book or something like that. You recall? Do you recall?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually ended up lending the book in which I did the extraction of the information from the public library to Tony Frederick Armstrong. I've been trying to recover my book.
Tony, listening?
I never heard anybody say that Sylvine did that section on migration, but be that as it may. Now, you're talking about renaming and naming. Are you looking for recent or just historical? Because a lot of the names you call are recent. I was thinking about the Irish Town Primary School. That school had not been renamed. Mr. James Sutton was the first principal of the Irish Town Primary School. I don't know, do you know that?
Unaware.
No, yeah, I was aware of that. Now, I did mention.
Yeah, because I did, Ma'am, I wrote a book. I have the book still that I wrote.
What's his name again?
What's
his name again, Mr. James?
What is called the infant school.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they started the village school, right in 1940 actually, then the primary children used to go to the village school, and then I think it's 51, but I have it in my book, because James Sutton was the first principal of Irish Town School. So it puzzled me why they have taken so long to rename that school.
Yeah, I
Why
did. Men-
nobody suggested a name for it?
I did mention that schools are on the list to be renamed, and you would agree, Mrs. Henry, that it's not enough for the individual to have simply been the first of anything, the first director, the first principal, the first manager, the first whatever. But the contribution. I'm not saying that this doesn't apply to Mr.
I'm
Sutton.
listening.
I'm not saying that this doesn't apply to Mr. Sutton, but I'm saying that the contributions must go beyond
That outstanding, yes.
being a mayor.
Yeah, it would have been outstanding
Right. Okay.
because it was a significant thing for the children of Irish Town because the school became overcrowded. Now, in St. Kitts, we're looking to just rename the public buildings and stuff. You notice in Nevis, the arcades are private with people name on them. Buildings in Nevis are named. I know Marshall House is named, which is Hotspur. How many other buildings in St. Kitts, privately owned, are named? Not many. So sometimes when we're thinking about the renaming, we must encourage the private sector to also do some renaming. Because I'm always proud of Nevisians, they take a lot of pride in their people and their places.
That is so.
So when we are thinking, and as I say, when you mention some names, it don't have to be all recent.
I agree.
Yeah. Otherwise, you see what you're going to run into. You're going to run into people who were in the game long time before these came, consistent, push the arts. And then these came when the time were more favorable. And you have more media where people could know about you.
This is
So we
why
need to have a proper listing.
this is why the Sylvian Henrys are so important, because they can correct and direct us in terms of our selection process.
Yeah, I did quite a lot. I spent 5 years at the archives,
Okay.
a whole 5 years, and then Mr. Blake sent me again. But what I'm saying, it is good to know the history and of our people. And I think we should continue. I did the whole village, from the settlement up until 1970.
Were you part of a
1970,
committee
I
or just
started.
individually? Something that Mr. Blake asked you to do. Is there a committee that is addressing this, Mr. Blake?
When he was at UNICEF, when he was at UNESCO, the UNESCO project.
Okay.
So what happened to the book?
Yeah, well, that was sent to the funding agency, and
Was it ever published?
no, it wasn't.
That's a shame. So when do you expect to do something about that?
Yeah, well, now that I'm back, I have a number of things on my list which I intend to pursue. And
But,
believe it or not,
but couldn't UNESCO people do it? Because I am looking for somebody to publish my book,
no, there were two projects. One of them was in fact published. The Breaking the Silence publication was in fact produced. But the other one, which focused essentially on education, the development of education, that was not taken to its ultimate conclusion. And I myself, I'm not even sure if I know why, or my suspicions, I don't want to voice them on here, but that was not taken to fruition. But like I said, I intend to pursue that now that I should have, I'm not so sure what's going to happen, but I should have
What
some
are you working on?
free time. Yeah.
What are you working on?
Sorry?
What are you working on presently?
I'm working right now on my third and fourth books simultaneously.
What are the names of them, may I ask?
I'm naming all my books Musings and Reflections.
Or your music and your
I've already
reflection.
published two. I assume you have copies of both. And I'm working
no,
on the third
no,
one.
I can't see. I want it in thing
Braille-
form so I can bring it
Great
up on
form. And the fourth one is going to be on my experiences in Cuba.
All right.
Mhm.
All right then, but I want you to encourage our people. I keep saying
Okay.
a lot of these shows that people call in and give historical and cultural information should be put together. That is the biggest source to me, and we don't use it enough.
Okay.
Ms.
All right,
Henry,
then.
we have a call on the line, so I'll stop the
All
cut
right
you.
then.
I'll call 11 Voices. Good day, call 11 Voices. I'm sorry, missed the call. You're free to call back. Okay, 11 Voices.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning, Sakura. How are you doing, man?
Very
Very
splendid.
interesting program
Mr. Blake is in the house. Thank you very much.
and timely.
Let's hear your contribution.
I would like to know. I always, who was two questions. Who was Sir Thomas Warner, and what was his significant contribution to, St. Kitts Nevis? All right.
Well, that's question number one. Is there another question?
Well, who was he, and what was his significant contribution? I know he has a tomb well kept at Midland,
Yes.
rather fancy, and the taxi men take tourists there every time they come in to Sir Thomas Warner's tomb. So, what's the importance? What was his contribution?
He is credited.
Let him finish.
Go ahead.
Because it's about time, we start taking the tourists to see our first national heroes too as well, and give them a little history about him and his contribution, to the islands. I'll hang up and listen.
Oh, I thought he had another question.
That's okay. My information tells me that Thomas Warner was a captain of the guards in England, and he was put into the Tower. But while he was there, the crown changed head. I don't remember which particular king. Okay, let me pause on that. Let me take this call. Call 11 Voices.
Good morning,
Good morning.
King Sakro.
Your humble servants.
This is Lolo.
Pardon?
This is Lolo. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Good program that we can be listening, educational. Want to say good morning to Mr. Blake.
Good morning, ma'am.
I just called to let you know if it's possible. Today's your girl birthday, so you can shout out. Beulah.
Oh, I was speaking about her
just
last
called to
night.
remind you.
Well, I
Pick
wonder.
up from me also when you're ready.
Yes, I
That's
shall.
it for now.
I should
Keep up the
Lulu.
good work.
And good morning to you too. That's Lulu, of course,
Yes.
Calypso fan. We should
Yeah.
name something
Yeah.
after Lulu. We have to name one of those cricket stadiums or something
All
after
right.
Lulu.
Oh, yeah.
Right? While I'm here, let me just take this moment to send my condolences out to the family of Mary White on the loss of her daughter yesterday. I was in Circus on Saturday, just hanging out there, and this lady passed and gave me a big, nice wave as usual. And then yesterday, I'm seeing that she passed, Valerie White, and that just hit me so hard. I made some calls as a find out as to the, how and when and why, etc. It shows you that, just like that. Passing Circus, Hill and Hearty, how you doing?
Uh-huh.
That was Saturday.
Right. And
Sunday, she's passed.
you make a joke.
So, understand, she lived in the village area, big fan of the football over there. She was
Yeah.
a big fan of Valerie, always very present, very vocal, just like that.
Wow.
So, my condolences to the White family. I shall stop by later on and have words with you. So, Beulah, happy birthday to you. I'm going to find you in person. We have to have a drink on that because she's one of the biggest supporters of Calypso and culture, coming out to all the tents. Even though she has some issues, she's out there every single time. So thanks, Lulu, for calling in and reminding me. I'm going to find Lulu, Beulah later, and we shall have words on that one too. So that's where we were, Mr. Blake.
Yeah, you were giving some information with respect to
Oh,
Thomas
Captain
Warner.
Warner. And the Crown's changed head, and he was given a commission to come out here in the West Indies in the days when the Pope gave them license to go out and Christianize all heathens. And he is said to have followed the map of Columbus and landed at Old Road Bay. This is the history that we were given
Yeah.
in 1623-24, and thereby establishing on St. Kitts the first British colony. It was, along with the French general who got together in 1623-26 and wiped out the Kalinagos,
26.
wiped out the Kalinagos at Bloody Point. And so shortly afterwards, they introduced slavery into St. Kitts because after Columbus discovered sugar cane, so he was knighted because the first tobacco that he grew was, the first crop, he grew was tobacco. They tried to enslave the Kalinagos, that didn't quite work out. When sugar became the new currency, enslaved Africans were brought to St. Kitts. So he was knighted for his contribution to the British Crown, and today we still teach his history and call him Sir Thomas Warner.
He was actually appointed governor of
I
St.
do
Kitts and
not
Nevis.
do that. He was appointed, yes. He was the partner in crime of one Samuel Jefferson, who was a great-great-grandfather of Thomas.
Right.
And they died within a year of each other. They lay together side by side in the Middle Island Cemetery. By way of information, Samuel Jefferson is said to be the great-great-grandfather of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. So we have those.
In the eyes, the question is, or rather the fact of the matter is that in the eyes of the colonizers,
yes,
Thomas Warner blazed the trail. He settled the St. Kitts, and from St. Kitts, of course, Antigua and Montserrat and other islands were settled. And so, for being such a pioneer, quote unquote, in that area, he was given recognition by the powers that be. Now, we are aware, of course, that as colonized people, and as black people in particular, we have been lied to and lied on more so than any other race. And a number of the accolades that have been bestowed on Thomas Warner, we now know from our own research and our own history that they were in fact exaggerated. And so the number of places that bear Thomas Warner's name, and by the way, the Middle Island Old Road, in which the Old Road village where he landed, which then served as the capital of St. Kitts, and that was almost natural until, of course, 1727 when he was moved to Bastia. But Old Road, Middle Island, Rothschilds, they're all in the parish of St. Thomas. So Thomas Warner has been fully recognized in St. Kitts. The question is, does his contribution really merit that kind of recognition? And should that aspect of our history be righted, R-I-G-H-T-E-D, or be rewritten? These are some of the matters which we can't just stay here in WinFM, on WinFM Voices program and decide or dictate. But these are issues which I think need to be more widely and broadly discussed.
Of course. And
action taken based on the outcome of those discussions.
There's a caller. Caller 11 Voices. Good day, caller 11 Voices.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. We're going to say much a program today.
We are discussing some heritage issues, like we're naming, identifying our nationals who made contribution to development of our culture and overall development, and trying to we name streets, buildings, etc. after them. That's just a general theme.
Okay. Well, I'm from East Bastia, and I would like to see a name of King Elimat, either the Newton playing field or the Carnival Village. And Mr. Pontine, he used to drive the Christina.
Yes.
He used to live in Newton for many years. You need instead of Newton Bay Road, you need Bay Road, Mr. Pontine's Bay Road something, because he lived right in the area and he was a driver to the Christina.
Okay.
That's where he was his life. So that's my contribution today.
Hold on.
Playing field. Hello?
Yes. What of Kenwick Georges?
Oh, yes, Kenwick Georges. Well, let me see. With Kenwick Georges, where you could name after him, because he from East starting with a good, well, maybe look, something, I ain't come up with no, maybe look something in the park. It could be the street where he used to live, change the name. Instead of John Street, you put it, well, Kenwick Georges Street or George something. But I forget here now. Yeah,
so you identified three persons, Ellie Matz, Mr. Pontine, and
yes,
we're discussing Kenwick Georges.
Georges, yes.
What of Keith Kayamba Gums?
Kayamba Gums?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could name the community instead of Pansite Extension. You could name it Kayamba Gums, because I think he used to live in the area. That's the last place he lived before he left to go away.
Okay.
He had a house right in the area, so that's my thing today. But King Elimat, the playing field from Newton, or the Warner Park, Carnival City.
Okay, thanks for your contribution.
Yes.
We're going to take this up right after another word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with Mr. Blake.
If you have one, hold it up and say, pass the brother colors in my life. Refreshing and nice, and I drink that what we like, but stand you full of vibes. Living full color, I know black and white. We do what we like, we live to enjoy life. Buster, pour it up, different flavor. Load it up. If you have one, hold it up and say, pass the brother colors in my life.
We're back with Voices in the studio of NFM. We discussed with Mr. Michael S. Blake some bit of a history in terms of heritage. People who have made their contribution over the many years should be considered for recognition in the field of education, culture, sports, etc. We had a caller who just mentioned some names. King Elimat, she thinks maybe the Park Stadium should be named after him. She mentioned Mr. Pontine, a former captain of the Christina. And that's a very sad story. We're actually coming up to the 50th anniversary of that episode. That's on August 1st. 50th anniversary of the Christina disaster. So that will be in the news at some point. Call your live on Voices.
Hello?
Could I call you live on Voices? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, sir.
When it comes to the rewriting and writing thing, as you mentioned, Mr. Blake mentioned, what is truth we should remain, but we could put it in a different way, because history is history. And at the end of the day, let's say, for example, a lot of persons keep looking at 1835, somewhere around when they say the abolition of slavery, but it's far more. So therefore, if you go back to the history, you realize way back in 1807, 1804, there was no slavery actually going on. But to make it a crime, if it happened after that, it was, Mr. Blake, you might have his information. So, it's just something we have to go before 1835 when we're trying to look at certain things. And then at the end of the day, at least Mr. Blake will know, the history of St. Nevis is kind of different to a lot of the other countries. And it's unique. Freedom in St. Nevis is a long time. I don't know if Mr. Blake is familiar with the case of Somersault and Granville Sharp. Remember that case, Mr. Blake?
Sorry, boy. Believe it or not, I just changed headsets.
He was changing headsets at the moment, so you may want to repeat that question.
Yeah, sorry about that. My apologies.
Okay. I'm saying that the history and freedom and the abolition of slavery are the non-practice of selling of slaves in St. Nevis. It's different for a lot of the other countries.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it has been done for a long time, many years. And like I was saying, that a lot of persons only focus on 1835 wrong there, but if they read that thing carefully, they will see it says formally abolish slavery. That means slavery was done with a long time.
You're saying
And if you go back to 1804, 1807, you could see something unique about things for me when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, 1807 was...
So our history is different. At the end of the day, a lot of persons sell the history of black history as being the same, but that I think it is unique. And freedom in St. Nevis is not just since 1835.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah, 1834, 38. But those are some valid points there, that black history... Sorry, carry on.
And what I was saying as well, I don't know if you remember the case about, the Somersault case, when Granville Sharp took up that man case, it reached to the Privy Council and he had to be paid.
Oh, yeah.
So you get the year and you regret, right?
Sorry, no, go ahead, you go ahead.
And if you get it, you realize that meaning St. Nevis, it says a lot of things of what happened. But unfortunately, when the story of slavery being told, only the bigger countries where, in the Caribbean and sometimes in the U.S. is being told. And therefore, even sometimes in the Caribbean, we pick up the ending of slavery in the U.S. more than what we pick up for our own. And the freedom we had in certain years was long before even that reached to the U.S. But we keep, linking ourselves to those parts and neglecting our own history. So naming of the things, unfortunately for a period of time, a lot of the things were named after persons, but in some form of way with politics. As you see in recent years, we're moving away, which is good. Right?
Okay.
I do not want to call any names, but there are a lot of places that can be named after a lot of other persons who would have done a lot of things. However, the names of some of the streets or some of the things could remain for information to our young persons. But if you have the information how it came and who the person was, it could go along. Because sometimes, if you erase history, the value of certain things, you should know. You know history. You know anything that has an age in it is more valuable than something new.
All right.
So we have to be careful, as you were saying, in writing and
narrating.
rewriting,
Yes.
that we don't actually lose the same thing that we are trying to preserve, which is our history. Because believe it or not, whether you want to remove it or not, if it wasn't for Christopher Columbus coming over here, we would not have been over here as who we are. If slavery didn't happen, we wouldn't have been here as who we are. So we still have to recognize those facts. And it is now how to, going forward, and make sure persons from our makeup of this, want to put it that way, they are being given the recognition that they deserve. But at the same time, do not try to be quick to eliminate a lot of things, guys. We're going to still fool ourselves when it comes to history.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, caller. Mr. Blake, one of them you mentioned earlier that I would like you to expound on is the name of Betty Douglas.
Yes.
Would like you to speak to that person and what she means.
Of course. Listen, there are so, as this guy was just saying, there are a number of other individuals who, if we really were to get serious about this thing, we would run out of places
Yes.
to name for them. I want to remind the last caller that I did say we want to write our GST and rewrite our history in a manner that does not distort, corrupt, or destroy the facts. Margaret Thatcher used to say, a fact is a fact is a fact. And a fact does not cease to exist because we ignore it or because we don't like it. So that in attempting to undertake this process, we have to stick to the facts. And as I said earlier, even if they are unpalatable. Let's take this caller before we discuss quickly Better Douglas's.
Caller, your live on voices.
Yes, Mr. Sakwachi, me again. We like to see change Port Zante. I think they need to name that Port Kennedy, that after Dr. Simmons. For years I've been telling them, me and Jamden had a talk. And with Kenwick Georges, them houses were passed building on Bellington Road. I think they need to name it after Kenwick Georges Pavilion.
Okay.
That's what I think about Kenwick Georges. He deserves something. I think that is the good way to put his name on the housing project while Mr. Patch is doing all things.
For consideration. Thank you very much.
You're taking notes of these things so you could just
Yes. We're going to talk about Port Zante probably after the news time because we're rushing to the news. Interludes.
Okay.
I want Mr. Blake to speak about Betty Douglas. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
All right.
Okay, just quickly, Betty Douglas was the lady who, as a house slave, fed information to those who were considering
Abolition.
No, rebelling.
Okay.
Undertaking resistance. So she risked her life and limb, as it were, in order to supply critical information which she would have gathered from her vantage point to those who would have been engaged in resistance. That's in a nutshell. Because there's so much more to say, and I have a number of issues here I want to
She
discuss.
was also the first case of a slave suing her captors.
Eventually. But before that,
She lost the case. But the whole story about her being put in the stockade because she was able to read and write.
Yeah,
and she was granted her freedom by the overseas owners. The local landlords refused to give her that, and because of what you said, she actually
when I was found out.
Okay.
She was subject to harm, and of course we know that the planters did not distinguish between females and males with respect to punishment. All right, they were brutal, cruel, they were merciless in respect to punishment, irrespective of gender, because everybody, of course, was viewed as chattel. Now, I just want to emphasize the point that the last speaker made, that when we speak of the history of slavery and black history, that they're not necessarily, they're not at all the same thing. Of course, there are elements that overlap, that interconnect. There are elements that that combine and converge, but there are elements of black history which are totally distinct from and which happened outside of the period of state slavery. Of course, we know, as C.L.R. James aptly reminds us, that slavery was a dirty institution. But in spite of the filth, in spite of the terror and horror of slavery, there were, in fact, instances of that are worth mentioning, instances of bravery, instances of rectitude, instances of involvement that contributed to those enslaved understanding the wrongness of their situation and encouraging them to take matters where they ought to. In other words, in terms of being relieved of their position. So that when we are going to examine the course of our history, both as products of slaves and as black people in general, there is a hell of a lot, if I may use that expression, that we really need to examine. And I'm not so sure if, like I said, a forum like this suffices. In fact, I'm going to offer now to come again, Socrates, to further this discussion. And maybe we should be more narrow in terms of what we're going to discuss, because right now there's
we're going way afield.
There's so much to discuss here. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to offer to come again and further entrench this discussion in a manner that teaches the audience, the listening audience, some of the most salient points. And in the process, of course, I am learning from their calls and input.
And perhaps we should look to take this to a level where you find it's a frequent gathering of the minds at maybe the UWI Center. We have this as an ongoing educational platform.
That is so critical. That is so missing in this country.
We need that.
There is no forum for intellectual discussion, for academic arousal. There is no forum for educational examination of things that are happening. There is no forum for us to get together, either as a small or large group, and ventilate the significance, the ramifications and implications. I hope that can happen this year.
After we leave here, this is the end of it. Because that happens most times in most topics.
Exactly.
So where would you go from here? How would we put it in place to make it? Yes. We're going to pause right now for the midday newscast. And we will be right back with you, our audience. Thank you for listening. Thanks for your call. We'll be back just after that interlude.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the Win FM Headline News. The Win FM Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Till you walk with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn, people you can trust.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults. It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Just days ahead of the June 5th general elections, there were allegations that the government was interfering in the work of the supervisor of elections.
There have been some level of interference by the executive, halting the supervisor of elections in the preparation of the necessary work to facilitate an election.
Making the allegation, one of the members of the Electoral Commission, Jason Hamilton. Win FM was last week able to put that allegation to Attorney General Vincent Byron. The suggestion that government interfered in the work of the supervisor of elections and the commission.
That's nonsense. It's spurious. I think this has been one of the elections that was very fair. I think the people were very satisfied, except for some long waits in the line to vote. That was one, and the question of the counting. But in terms of the conduct of the commission, of the work of the supervisor, of the office of the supervisor, as well as the commission, he has been very open, very transparent. He has come to the public regularly. He has alerted them to what he's doing. And I think that any such allegation is far-fetched.
In his June 3rd interview with Win FM, Commissioner Hamilton, a former Attorney General, made an even more serious claim.
The Constitution specifically states that the only person who can, or the only authority that can direct the supervisor of elections is the commission. However, we have a situation where, for example, the supervisor of elections would have prepared a list of persons to be returning officers. He would have vetted the persons, he would have interviewed the persons, he would have had training sessions with the persons. That list disappeared. Disappeared in the sense that none of the persons who were selected, and that list was voted on by the commission, and then a new list is presented with returning officers, none of whom were selected by the supervisor. The Constitution, the National Assembly's Elections Act specifically says that the Governor General appoints on the advice of the supervisor of elections. So unless the supervisor is going to say that he recommended a set of persons that he's never spoken with, never interviewed in the process, then it means some other level or arm or administrative body is directing the supervisor of elections what to do.
Supervisor of Elections Elvin Bailey, at a press conference of the Local Elections Observer Mission on June 24, was asked about that specific claim.
In October of last year, I started a series of meetings. First one was at NEMA. Then I had him around the country. I had him around Sinkies because I didn't have any where people showed interest. I did an assessment. Based on that interaction, I selected certain people who I thought could move the process forward. And I submitted those names. The Governor General, according to the law, may accept them, he may reject them. Some of them were not accepted, some of them were accepted. Does that indicate interference? Well, you will have to decide and debate on that one. But the Governor General exercised his discretion according to what the law allowed him to exercise in making his final decision.
WinFM also asked the Supervisor of Elections at the time about the independence of his office and the Electoral Commission. Supervisor Bailey made, among other things, reference to the existing budget under which the electoral machinery operates.
The Supervisor of Elections is an independent person. I am an independent thinker, sir. The Electoral Commission, by virtue of the way it is structured, a representative from the government side, a representative from the opposition side, and a chairman appointed in the deliberate decision of the Governor General. I see it as being as independent as it can be in the circumstances. We do not have a budget. The budget is a ministry budget. Now, if it is that the commission itself needs to have a budget to establish its independence, then I would hope that you would make that strong recommendation. But as I sit, the way I have operated, I have had no interference to tell me, do this, do that, do that, do that.
Supervisor of Elections, Elvin Bailey.
The West Indies won the first test of the scheduled 3 test matches against England by 4 wickets on Sunday. The first international cricket match to be played since the onset of COVID-19 forced cancellations of games and closed borders. The victory proved the icing on the cake of an extraordinary week of cricket played in a biosecure space, but with the full spectacle of solidarity with Black Lives Matter, as captured on Sky Sports, along with riveting commentary from legendary West Indies fast bowler Michael Holding.
We have been brainwashed, and not just black people. White people have been brainwashed in different ways. I go back many years. Think about religion. You and I are supposed to be Christians. I'm not really a very holy person, not a very religious person. That's what we were taught. Look at Jesus Christ, the image that they give you of Jesus Christ. Pale skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. Where Jesus came from, who in that part of the world looks that way? But again, that's the brainwashing to show you this is what perfection is. This is what the image of perfection is. If you look at any plays of those days, Judas, who betrayed Jesus, he's a black man. Again, brainwashing people into think, oh, he's a black man. He's the bad man. Go through history, Wardy. These lights that are shining on us. You can tell me who invented the light bulb, right? Thomas Edison, right? Everybody knows Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Thomas Edison invented a light bulb with a paper filament. It burnt out in no time at all. Can you tell me who invented the filament that makes these lights shine throughout? Nobody knows, because he's a black man. It was not taught in schools. Lewis Howard Latimer invented the carbon filament to allow lights to continuously shine. Who knows that? Everything should be taught. When you go back through the schooling as a young man, I remember my school days. I was never taught anything good about black people. And you cannot have a society that is brought up like that, both white and black, that only teach what's convenient to the teacher. History is written by the conqueror, not by those that are conquered. History is written by the people who do the harm, not by the people who get harmed. And we need to go back and teach both sides of history. And until we do that and educate the entire human race, this thing will not stop. They keep on telling me there's nothing called white privilege. Give me a break. I don't see any white people going into a store on Oxford Street and being followed. A black man walks in, somebody is following him everywhere he goes. That is basic white privilege. Whether that white person went in to rob the place or not is not going to be thought of that way. And things like that have to change.
Former West Indies Test captain Darren Sammy's comments on a racist label disguised as a nickname while he played in the IPL.
Yeah. Look, with everything that's happening in the world right now, I think it's a great time. Black people, or rather people of color, feel that they have a voice. It's a time where they've had enough and they could stand up and speak out and be heard about the social and racial injustice and inequalities they've faced over how many centuries, and with all that, there's always education, or rather learning in every situation. And with all what that was going on in this world, I was listening to a documentary on how an Asian comedian was, making a stance for Black Lives Matter, and how his community or his people react and treat Black people. And whilst he was explaining, I heard one of the words that, he said they used to clown and degrade black people, in his culture. And instantly, I remember when I was in India in the dressing room, that was my nickname, myself and Tisera Pereira, because we were obviously the two darkest guys in terms of complexion.
On Saturday's Inside the News program, Sammy, the only captain to win the World Cup T20 tournament twice, and who was bestowed citizenship of Pakistan for his contribution to international cricket, complimented Michael Holding for his remarks.
I voiced my concern and my disappointment in knowing that, if that word could mean such degrading things to Black people, why use it? And that was my stance. And I've been very vocal on the systemic racism that Black people have faced, even in cricket. And I challenge the ICC and the different boards, to make a change and support that. I watched during the test match, I saw Ebony and I saw Mikey being very, passionate, and emotional in speaking about, racism and social injustice and systemic racism, that he's faced and Black people have faced. And, it's enough, and I think the movement is moving forward, and it's no time to be silent.
Back to Sunday's West Indies victory, here's a summary of the fifth day's players presented by regional cricket commentator Andrew Mason on Vibes FM.
The West Indies defeated England, and what a performance by the West Indies. At one stage, 27 for 3 in pursuit of 200, and we were saying, oh no, not again. But there's a man called Blackwood from the land of wood and water, and I suppose he would have been inspired by his national anthem that says, stir response to duty's call. And along with Captain Jason Holt at the end, in fact, Chase had a very good match, 2 very important innings, and Little Dowich, he batted extremely well, and the West Indies got over the line. And I would imagine from Kingston, Jamaica, right through to Georgetown in Guyana, we are celebrating like Biggie Irie, who says, we now go home till the morning come. At the start, England were 170 to the good with 2 wickets remaining, and they were looking to get to 300 or even more. That would never happen. They got to 200 in terms of the lead. They wanted that. And in the end, it did not prove to be enough, despite a good effort from Archer and company. The West Indies, after being 27 for 3, went home with a victory.
For Choice News Now, Nelsia Shalmang reporting. Justice delayed is justice denied. That's the sentiment being echoed by Police Welfare Association President Travis Chico on 3 outstanding matters involving the police: the deaths of both Shakadan Daniel and Arnold Joseph, and the investigation into Operation Restore Confidence.
We are very much concerned, and I would have said that we continue to blame the system for what is happening. The impacts moves into another 9 years of the allegation. We've seen about 3 or 4 investigations. We've seen a new team investigating, and we tend to believe, and we The Welfare Association continues to hold its position that justice delayed is justice denied. Justice denied is justice delayed. And we're saying that we cannot continue to operate in an environment where persons continue to work with allegations of extrajudicial killings, allegations of waking up in the morning and going to be charged for murder. And we keep it for example, persons are dragging their foot on the situation. The Welfare Association has called on all the authorities to look at the position and to come out and be clean with the people of St. Lucia. If there is no evidence, we need to indicate that in certain matters that there is no evidence.
He commented specifically on delays in the Shakadan Daniel matter.
The Shakadan matter, yes, the members we were arrested. The Welfare Association would have provided them with legal representation. But to this date, we are yet to see anything implicating the men criminally. What we knew that they were questioned about was negligence. And we prepared to have a day in court. We prepared to allow these men to be charged, so that, or whether charged or not charged. But we cannot allow these men to continue working, allegations hanging against them, and they go to work every day, they perform. Some of them are not even considered for upward mobility. So this is where the system fails the police, and we are saying that we're prepared. We have a number of persons through the legal fraternity who are retained in dealing with this matter. So the Welfare Association is not just going by behaving like we're not prepared. We need to provide a lot more psychological support.
According to Chico, the delays are causing psychological pressure not only on the officers involved, but their families. He has called on Director of Public Prosecutions, Dasrian Green.
It's really causing even more stress for the organization, low morale, low productivity, a lot of issues for us. And we're saying that we are prepared to have our day in court. We are prepared to deal with the matter, and we're prepared to say that if the DPP does not have any evidence, to come out and indicate that he does not have evidence. And we cannot continue to allow those matters to be prolonged. We are moving into the 10th year, and we cannot go into 10 years with an allegation. We have the cases of Pratt and Morgan, where a man spends a considerable time on remand, and he cannot take the life sentence for death. So just imagine that you have men who are waiting for 9, going on to 10 years. This is sad. This is a sad day for us in St. Lucia. The system has failed our police officers, but the Welfare Association continues to support them psychologically, continues to stand with them, continues to dialogue with them, dialogue with the attorneys daily, to ensure that we are prepared and to ensure that when the time comes, whatever decision that is taken, that the Welfare Association will be prepared in dealing with the matter of impacts.
As it pertains to the 2019 death of Arnold Joseph, Acting Police Commissioner Milton Daisy recently provided an update, stating that one key part of the investigation is still outstanding.
This is Al Jazeera.
Yemen's Houthi rebels say they've killed and injured dozens of high-ranking military officers in Saudi Arabia. According to their spokesman, they hit multiple military sites and a large oil facility just across the border. The Houthis claim this is part of a major new offensive. Saudi Arabia hasn't said whether anyone was killed or injured in the attacks. However, the Saudi-UAE coalition in Yemen has announced it's intercepted 4 missiles and 6 explosive drones overnight.
With high-precision ballistic missiles not disclosed before and large numbers of drones, our armed forces destroyed warplanes and pilot barracks and their Defense Patriot system in Khamis Mshet. Other military positions in Abha, Jizan and Najran were destroyed. Also, the giant oil installation in the industrial area of Jizan was targeted. Targets were hit with high precision. Our armed forces successfully targeted the Tadawin military camp in Marib province, where Saudi high officials were meeting. As a result, dozens were killed and injured.
Mamoun Abu Nawar is a military analyst and a retired Jordanian Air Force general. He's joining us on Skype from Amman. Good to have you with us, sir. Thank you very much indeed for being with us on Al Jazeera. Saudi Arabia is saying that 4 missiles and 6 explosive drones had been intercepted. Now, if these attacks are as significant as the Houthis claim, what does that tell us about the Houthis' capabilities?
Houthi have a very big capability. In actual fact, they have the upper hand in war in Yemen, using such weapons, drones, ballistic missile, and cruise. They are changing the nature of the war. in 25th century, and I think they are the most experienced now in the world using such weapons. I think the Iranian learning from them, the Saudi also learning how to defend against them. The Saudi air defense system is vulnerable and weak, even with the American try to help them out on that, to integrate new Patriot, new radars with their system. It's a vast area, very hard to detect targets, such cruise or drones. So these targets, they have the accuracy, these weapons, they have the accuracy and the range to reach anywhere in the Gulf, Saudi, UAE, etc. Even they could reach Tel Aviv, Israel, with these cruise missiles nowadays. So that's it's a big, great challenge for the Saudi to destroy such weapons in the future.
I can understand the geographic limitations that the Saudi Arabia is facing, but the targets that the Houthis are repeatedly hitting are pretty much the same targets. Apart from the geography, what is the issue with the Saudi air defense system that it's not able to down more of these drones and missiles?
They don't have the strategic warning, early warning, and they cannot detect these targets, drones or cruise, because the signature of these targets are very small, but they can detect the ballistic missile, even though they have problem in destroying such targets. The Houthi know exactly how he chooses his target list, and it's affecting the morale, making the Saudi unstable country, insecure for their population, and in actual fact, they are warning, they're giving or announcing that they're gonna hit the leadership of the Saudi, which is a great escalation if this happens. They can hit communication, water desalination, even the energy installation type thing. So they can really paralyze the country if they know exactly what to hit, and this seems to be they know what they are doing.
We appreciate your time, Sir Mamoun Abu Nawar. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Al Jazeera.
That was the WinFM Headline News, brought to you by KDP Enterprises, Caribbean Alliance, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading, The Grange.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Till you walk with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we got you covered. For all your insurance needs, 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn. People you can trust.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Found the Sound 98.9 FM.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
This is your local weather forecast brought to you by Sweet Cane. Local weather forecast for St. Catch and Nevis, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, 14th July. Synopsis: dry air along with Saharan dust entering the region will continue to restrict shower activity and keep the environment slightly hazy across the islands today. Some shallow moisture and instability associated with a trough that will over the region overnight into early Tuesday morning will increase the chances of showers to moderate. Today's weather: partly cloudy and slightly hazy with a 20% or slight chance of showers. Tonight's weather: partly cloudy with a 30% or low chance of showers up to midnight. Thereafter, skies will become mostly cloudy with a 50% or moderate chance of some brief showers. Winds east at 19 to 30 kilometers or 10 to 16 knots, with gusts possibly reaching 44 kilometers or 24 knots. Seas 1.2 to 1.5 meters or 4 to 5 feet. Today's sunset 6:49 p.m. and tomorrow's sunrise 5:45 a.m. This has been your local weather forecast for St. Cat's and Nevis, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow. Brought to you by Sweet Cane.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Studios of Win FM. We got about 28 minutes up to the 1 o'clock hour. We're just back from the midday luncheon interlude, and we'll continue with the Voices program directly after a word from our sponsors.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horswoods Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss this. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
I want to say welcome back to our many listeners listening to Voices via the various platforms. We had a very wonderful discourse this morning. We had Mr. Michael S. Blake in the studio. We were discussing the many ways we can honor the various persons on St. Kitts Nevis, sons and daughters of the soil, on both sides of the divide who have made their contributions. Renaming certain streets, buildings, and such after them. We examined from a historical perspective how we should approach this in terms of renaming, and as he put it, rewriting some of the history. At the moment, Mr. Blake is not with us, but hopefully he'll be back before the program concludes. So for those who wish to call in who are here this morning, I want to thank you guys. If you want to continue the conversation and you're not quite sure, the numbers to call to get in the studio will be 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989, and for the overseas line we have 718-2851. Sorry, 285-6948. That's 718-285-6948. From the Florida area we have 508-921-4619. From the UK we have the line 033-3044-0065. And there's a call on the line. We go direct to the lines. Call 11 Voices.
Yes. Mr. Sakoti.
Yes, sir.
Let me turn on the radio. I was trying to get in since morning, but I couldn't.
You got the mic now.
Yes. It'll be difficult to get you when you're in the rural area. I'm calling from Challengers.
Yes, sir.
No. As you know, as a taxi man, you know, Challengers had some good history. But we was a few of us were trying to go together and to form a group that we would discuss the local history. And we got a lot of local pieces of history. Now, because of the coronavirus, we just couldn't do that because we were targeting the February match. So I don't know if it can happen before the end of the year again. Now we may got to wait and see what happens by the end of the year. But,
okay, hold on a second. There was some disturbance in your line when you were speaking. I didn't quite capture what you said. You said a group of us were trying to get together.
A group of us?
Yes, please
group
repeat.
Of us, people.
Yes, sir.
From local people in the Challengers area.
Yes.
We were about to get together to form a group to discuss the local history and to involve the young ones that they could get to know to carry it on. They could get information that some of us have. Now, what you're doing there on the radio with people calling in and saying different things, nothing really wrong with it. But I believe if you all now, if something, what's the funny department, the culture was supposed to be doing this kind of thing, you know, really, got to the communities and get the groups them who are interested and discuss with them. And they could be recorded, you know, electronically, and then you could get a lot of information. You'll hear what people say and all of that. People don't like to read so much nowadays. Now, before go, I got a lot of things to say, but before go, some time ago, when Tony Frederick was at the museum,
yes,
where they call the group there,
Heritage,
discussing something about the sugar factory.
Yes.
And it would have been nice if you could get somebody who knows going on and I offer my services because I work here for a long time. I don't know the place just like the palm of my hand. But maybe they want to hear my voice. Maybe they want to hear a big shot voice. Nobody responded to me. So just why you hear somebody say maybe at the end of the program today, I say, I wouldn't say that. I keep hope alive. But that same sugar factory thing, I know the whole place. I know all was on in it. And I would have been glad. Not to big army voice, but it's to get the information to who would like to get it.
Well, here's what.
Huh?
I don't mind giving you my number because it's known publicly. If you can call me after the program.
Hold on there. When you're passing, you don't see me. You don't see me. You know who I am. I ain't give you my name, but you know me.
How do you know I know you?
Man, you know me. I don't talk to you in the circus and all of that. You don't want to talk. You don't want
yes. Okay.
Come on, man. Before go, you know, the 24th of June gone made anniversary of when they brought up this Windrush thing.
The Windrush
Windrush, remember the idea came to life sometime before when they had Commonwealth Conference in London a couple of years before. But 24th of June was the anniversary of the Windrush arriving in England.
Okay.
He got some doctor called Tilbury doctor. That's before you go up to London. It's a historical place, but the London Museum of Recorded History, they had people here from 1950, when 40 or 50, whenever, early 50s. People are talking like somebody said to the north and the kind of problems they met and so forth. So I heard some of it on the BBC, because they played it back.
Yep.
So I just said that to show. Well, we could do that, and this is modern age way that recording, so people who know. And lastly, now, before we go, do you know that after emancipation, slaves were still brought into St. Kitts? And to St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Kitts. Right where they're building the road in the city, and Old Road Bay, they used to land them across there.
Okay.
At Old Road Bay. That is why the people from Old Road go down to St. Paul's look like how they look. Dark and stocky and big and strong and physical. Because they came mostly from the Congo. Okay?
Yep.
So, you see, so, I mean, I got a lot of other things I could say, but I know this program ain't for it. But if we meet up one day there and you got the time and I got the time.
Let's have a chat.
Yeah, we'll have a chat. But I got a lot of things.
Okay.
According to you, nobody want to hear nothing from you. Okay?
I just said let's have a chat because I think that in the interim, in the time being, we can actually, as taxi drivers, help to re-educate ourselves and get as much information as possible in this downtime to better make a presentation. So I want to thank you for your contribution. Just shot me the
I made a suggestion to Win FM long time now about how to get around some of these local history.
Okay.
I saw an idea in Jamaica, and we could mirror that. But, you know, nobody said you because you ain't nobody else.
You're somebody. Touch base with me, we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
Okay?
Have a good day.
Okay, appreciate that. I did attend a ceremony, I think it was 2 years ago, on the anniversary of the Windrush. It was a museum sort of setting. They had photos. We spoke to some of the survivors. I've got pictures I've taken with some of the folks who were on that particular trip. Some of members of the association, we had discussions, etc. So somewhat, I won't say involved in that, but I did write songs and perform to that particular society. A song called Our Contribution, which spoke about the contribution of the folks who left the region to go to help to rebuild London after Hitler had bombarded that during the World War. There's a call on the line. Call away your 11 voices.
King, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Oh, not too bad.
Okay.
King, why it find so difficult to our people in our country to learn our black local history? Why?
Well, part of the problem.
Because the people may want to know about the
Not
heroes,
necessarily. Part of the problem is a curriculum that was given to us in our schools, even up to the tertiary level. The curriculum, the education, the history was crafted and given to us So it's left for our people today now to rethink that and look at our own history and bring it into the schools. We have to reach our people from the primary stage. We have to re-educate our people from that level.
But King, I believe that someone, just like how Brother Blake was on this morning, I ain't had much time to listen to him because I was paying more attention to the animal. Then I had my radio.
Yes.
So, going back and forth, and so I can't listen to the radio as comfortable I want to listen. Brother Blake always, he always spell out the thing them for the ordinary man to understand. And I always admire him for that. You understand? And people like Sylvain Henry and others who in the teaching profession, who don't resign from teaching profession. We could get them people there and put down some article and put them in our history, put them in our archive, and teach them in school. Let these young teachers, because these young teachers who teach now, they don't even know the local history.
So
they don't even know what went on here.
We had a discussion, Mr. Blake and I, with a view of having some ongoing conversations, maybe at US Center in the evenings, because to just do articles and put them in the archives, people may not get to them. But if you have ongoing discussions throughout a period of maybe 6 months, a program where the teachers, the public at large can come and sit and discourse and look at our history from that perspective, we'll get much, much better results.
You see, but after again, the king, I like Washi Archibald, right? I like Washi Archibald and Innis, Mr. Innis.
Yes.
Support Innis, right? Them supposed to in our document, in our archive, those guys' presentation they make. Because those guys say some good things, they get into the archive and they know the history. And I believe all those things were Washi and some of the past heroes were done gone, our star were done gone. Those is supposed to document in our archive and teach in the school. You play them in the school. You play them in the schools, you just play up, you got a city there with them, the presentation they make and so, and you play them.
Well, that's where we started the conversation now, to get that the consciousness up there. Because
we need to know where we come, we need to learn where we come from and where we're going back and who is who and who is not. You understand?
Yes,
that's why we're so ignorant, because we don't want to know what's going on. I don't know some 12 years old. They know who the first Prime Minister of the Federation be. They don't know who the first Premier be. You understand?
Well,
they don't know the first Governor. They don't know the first Governor General. And these are the things that our young coming up children in primary school supposed to learn and know.
Correct.
Okay then, Nicking.
All right, sir. You made a point about some of the primary school students, those that even secondary level didn't know who our first Prime Minister was. This was by design. For some 20 years, selective history was taught in our classrooms. We went from the Honorable Robert Bradshaw to Limo to Prime Minister Douglas. And there was nothing taught about Dr. Simmons' contribution. Speaking of which, there was a call that spoke about maybe Port Zante should be renamed. It should be called Dr. Simmons, Port Kennedy. The question is, how many of us know why Port Zante was named Port Zante? My information tells me it was actually a recommendation by the late Sir Robin Innes. And if anyone can correct me, I will stand corrected. It's believed that he said that when Columbus came here and he looked at the slope of St. Kitts, it reminded him of the plains of Zante in Greece. When Columbus came here, looking at the slopes of St. Kitts, it reminded him of the plains of Zante in Greece. And so as a result, the recommendation was called the Port Zante. What do we have to do with Greece? What do we have to do with the plains of Zante in Greece? So that, if that is true, and my information tells me that is correct, somebody was saying that the Honorable Dr. Dwight Astafan was instrumental in getting the name crafted. I'm not sure. Somebody can call and tell me if I'm wrong. But if that is the case, it's an easy issue to rename it, be it after Dr. Simmons or not, because we don't have one thing to do with Greece. Not because of Mr. Socrates. Okay, Is there any calling line? Let me segue into a little issue here. I had a text this morning from a certain gentleman inquiring if the taxi fraternity is aware of the Uber-like taxi service operating in the Federation, and what are the taxi associations doing about it, etc. I can say to that gentleman that there is an awareness. And there was a meeting held between the Permanent Secretary in Tourism, Ms. Carlin Morton Henry, and Ms. Melissa Marshall, Product Development in the Department of Tourism, the President of the St. Kitts Taxi Association, the President of the Lyomega Taxi Association, and myself, representing the St. Kitts Taxi Cooperative. We had very wide discussions. We discussed the whole issue of that service being marketed via various media streams, how it came to be, how it's affecting the taxi drivers. And I'm told the company is owned by a young lady who made an appeal to get a business license from the various, licensing authority. And eventually she was given permission to operate. So you cannot prevent anyone making an investment. But there are efforts afoot to get all the concerned parties together, be it from traffic, from inland revenue, and those representing the taxi fraternity to meet as soon as possible and address the problem that particular arrangement would have caused. We have taxi drivers in the circus waiting to ply the trade. We're told now that there's this app where you can just call and get taxi service. Call it Uber if you wish. But do they have the requisite authority where they were given permission to operate while using private vehicles for that service when you have vehicles in the public service that have to meet a certain requirement, paying the certain taxes, etc., and they are not getting any businesses. So we're going to look at how we can get a bridge in that. So the tourism department is aware of it, and they too are looking at finding some common ground where all parties can be sort of satisfied. Okay, so it's about 10 minutes pushing 1 o'clock. Mr. Blake, who had to make an engagement, says he'll try to get back. If not, we'll try to schedule for follow-up discussion about 2 Mondays from now. I have another guest booked for next Monday, God spare life. So yes, on my list, what I had this morning, we're discussing, we're naming some of the, identifying, okay, I'm told you had to go straight to the phone lines. Call you live on Voices.
Hello.
Good to call you live on Voices.
Greetings, my brethren. This is Rasajin here, man. When you're talking about history, that's my thing, man.
Talk to me.
History is the reality of the past. Everything that's going on in the present of its origin from the past. All the answers to every problem is in the past. See? But most people say, I want to enjoy my life. I ain't got no time with no history. I just want to live in now, and get paid, and then I enjoy myself and I pay my bills. But look how we are being hindered from getting paid. You see, unexpectedly, the system. But history teaches we live off the grid. We can feed ourselves. We can do solar energy. We can do a borehole and get water. You see what I'm saying? And we can plant food in the land surrounding us, and we would never have to pay any bills. And we will have electricity. We'll have everything modern, off the grid. And we as a black people, we came from somewhere. Where was the Christopher Columbus before black people came to the Caribbean and the West, before slavery? Did you know there was black people here before slavery?
There is a school of thought, and there are some evidence. There's some evidence that aspect of our history was denied for reasons. I wanted to keep us ignorant of our contribution globally in terms of being able to travel. We're talking about astrology. We're talking about, I'm forgetting the phrase I'm trying to find now, where it's a shipping phrase, a navigation, where Africans were found in North America. They were what we call the Native Americans. We found Africans among them. And there's a whole lot. There are lots and lots of books that speak to that contribution by our people prior to Columbus. We know that that history was recrafted and given to us in a manner for us to believe that we were inferior. And it was illegal for you to be able to read and learn your own history. So it's a vital thing for us to be able to know and embrace our history. You started out by describing history, but people don't really concern about the past. They're concerned about here and now. The awesomeness of our history, once we negate that, we don't want to embrace it. It tells us why we are lost people today.
So we can recover that because we need refuge. And the only place is to go to the answers, which is in the past. And the past is calling us. Africa is calling. You see? Liat is in a lot of problems. But if it's Liat start to carry some people who want to check out Africa because we have a connection. You hear people talk about when they go to Africa, they feel a feeling like they're just reaching the house. They feel like a home.
It's a reconnection.
Welcome. Yes. We need to start to visit home, man. And across the Atlantic is less than 10,000 miles. 10,000 miles is from North America.
I think Ghana has a program where they're trying to welcome people back home and giving them free citizenship, etc. But that's a different conversation, different level. Liat would not be able to operate on that level.
Yes, we do. And you can get freelance and set up business. They're not looking for you to come for a job. They're looking for you to come and give somebody a job, set up a business. Because they're looking for us.
Okay.
So we got to talk about our history and where we are and where we must be heading, our destiny, how we must connect with Africa.
Okay.
See?
Thank you very much for your contribution.
Respect, my brethren. One love to everyone.
If anybody want back to the lines, call 11 Voices.
Good afternoon, Mr. Socrates.
Good afternoon, young lady. How are you?
Yes. You know what I like to see?
You're back again.
The big circle. Yes, I'm back again.
Mhm.
Because me and Jam don't always talk about these things.
Yeah, he told me he would call, you know.
Huh?
He told me he would call.
Oh, you see that big circle in front of Ramsey?
Yes, the roundabout.
Yes. The old Labour black saying do it, Douglas saying do it, Pam saying do it, and I think that unity, then you should get a big monument and put with the Christina, and they mightn't get all the names and put Mr. Punton right there.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? They should have done do that. Long time.
Okay.
And these elderly people, look, the lady was doing this one, they should have gone to these elderly people. Get them on a video and let them talk about these days because we're losing our history. I don't know much. I know a little bit. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't teach some of the things, they don't even teach the children in school. All of the Brimstone Hill, they said I had something down there a couple of years ago and so much people they lost their life. Some of the children, the grassroots children, them from St. they don't know about these things, and these are the things we need to document, and you understand?
Even when we speak to them, we actually gloss over it. But your suggestion or recommending that the roundabout that's on Port Zante, as you enter there in front of Rams on the Bay Road, they should have recommended it for Mr. Pontin?
Yeah, a big monument with the Christina, some of the names, and Mr. Puntin picture should have right on it because he was the captain of the ship, and that's the way I say either he or Dr. Simmons name should have on Port Zante because I don't know who named Port Zante. When Mr. Puntin leave Newtown that Saturday morning to go afternoon to go drive the ship, that's the last place he leave from, behind the treasury when the small pier were behind.
Remember those, I recall those, yes.
Yes, that's where he leave. That's where he leave from. So I think they should have put his name or Dr. Simmons' name on the Port Zante and move the Port Zante because I can't trace that nothing to Zante. I don't know. So That is my suggestion for today. And I beg him practice when he open the housing community, name it after Kenrick George's housing community or Kenrick George's pavilion.
Okay, so you're campaigning for Kenrick George's, for Ellie Matts,
Yes.
for Mr. Pontine, and possibly Kayamba going
Yes.
for Newtown. Sandy Point, what are you doing?
Yes.
I would need somebody from Nevis to call and let me know what's happening over there in terms of the 50th anniversary of the Christian disaster. That's on August 1st. They have some sort of ceremony, and they're honoring as best they can. They put in monuments. So I'd like to know what we're doing over there. Can somebody from Nevis call me and let me know what's happening in
Yes.
terms of right?
Yes, Mr. Because I remember some of the people that were joined under Christina. He had a nun from the Roman school, and he had a lady up Newton into the Kukup. They used to call her. She used to work in Fortune Bakery,
Mhm.
and a girl from Jessica. And he had his fellow named Dunta from Newton. He used to play basketball. All of them and spin. All of them were in the Christina. Spin was about 10 years when you were in the Christina and the brother. So
Mhm.
we need to get documents from these people here. Else we don't lose it. You understand?
I thought we lost a big opportunity in terms of Washi. I think more people
Yes.
should have sat with him and record some of the knowledge he had. He had a wonderful knowledge base of the history and the culture of St. Kitts, and we thought we lost a big
Yeah,
opportunity
because
over
we
there.
are a lot of elderly people. We need to go on to these elderly and let them tell us how we used to be back in the days.
Mhm.
You understand? Because I don't know much. I only could go as far maybe in the early 60s.
I just found out
don't
last
know
week. I just found out last week through a conversation. I was speaking to Miss Carlin Morton Henry, and found out that she was born on a building in Downing Street, Sandy Point. That was the Parliament building, and she said she didn't even know. Right now,
Yeah.
I believe her when she says she has a document written by Marcus Garvey to her grandfather, thanking him for the accommodations that he provided when he visited St. Kitts. Carlin Morton Henry, I believe her when she says she has a document which her uncle found in some old boxes, and it's a letter written by Marcus Garvey thanking her grandfather for the accommodations that he provided when he visited St. Kitts back in the 30s. So,
And Mr.
Yes.
Yeah, when you finish.
so we have all this history, we have all the things that we just take for granted. We need to collate it and present it in a way so that we can really trace. But the Mr. Ponty name has always been associated with the disaster, but of his contribution over the years as a ship captain. And for those who survived, I recall a neighbor of mine, her son went down on that day. I was very aware of it. We're now seeing 50 years
And
after.
Mr. Secretary, and I had a girl named Floretta. She did David Head Byron. She was on the ship too.
You know who
And
David
some
Hill by one.
Yes, I remember when I run down the tongue by the afternoon and I see all them fishes was going out to leave it. He had a lady named Miss Pete. She used to come down and send mango and a girl named Jessica from Newton. I remember all of them.
Mm-hmm.
You hear? And we don't like to sit around our elderly, but I like to sit around elderly people because when you sit around them elderly people, trust me, things what you don't know.
It would be good. It would be good
Yes,
if we could
I
have a
love
little
sit around
forum
elderly.
where people like you could sit and we discuss all that we know about what happened then, because you're the people, the person with the history, with the memory of actually living through that particular episode 50 years after. And there needs to be something more fundamental than just going out there and dropping reeds. We have to say thank you to Captain Skeet for over the many years he's gone there and laid reeds at the site of the tragedy.
And you know, when you sit around an elderly person, right? You know, they don't want you to move. You know,
Because they want to talk.
Trust me, they talk.
They wanna
bring up
talk.
things. I remember our grandfather.
Mhm.
He used to tell us way back when they had this strike up the sugar factory. A lot of things he used to tell us. I love to sit around them when they had this strike.
They have a lot to
So
impart,
that is
a lot to share with
that
us.
is all my preference for today, and I hope that this thing will happen, what we're talking about today, because I don't want the next generation grassroots to lose our history.
Okay.
So, bye.
When we get back from the station break, we'll speak about the griots, the oral historians, which has actually merged into today's Calypsonians. We want to pause for station ID and a word from the sponsors, and be right back.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horswood's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss it. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, we're back in the studios of NFM and we are discussing various things in today's episode of Voices. My name is Socrates and we go straight to the lines. Call your live in Voices.
The King.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Our people are being brainwashed. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Because even our black people who know and fail to let us know, educate us to work because they feel like they're up there and you're down there, they look down upon you. And these are the things that we will never get together as one and try to learn and teach us whatsoever. I admire culture and Nicky Japan, you know. I hear him on several radio talk shows. And that man that try to educate people towards a lot of different things with them born money and everything financially to how to manage. And I always admire him. And if a lot of young people, young men and women listen to Carlton Licky Japan, I believe that they'll be better off in life. Instead of criticizing him and talking a negative thing about him, some of them, he will talk to politics. He joke.
Mm-hmm.
That guy that educate, I telling you, the King. You understand?
He is a very positive influence.
Eh?
He's a positive influence.
Positive man, the man positive with what he said. He will do it sometimes in a jokey way.
Mm-hmm.
But it come out to mean something. You understand? And these are the things we don't admire people when they do all these things. That's why you see when we be how we be. And some of us to end up how we end up.
Okay. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
We had the lady who was on the line before you, and she recommended a number of things in Newtown to be named after, like the likes of Elimat, Georges, Mr. Pontine, Kayamba Gums, etc. You're from West Basset, is it?
Yeah, West Basset, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Dr. Irving Sweeney, King Sweeney. What would you like to see named after him?
Well, Irving Sweeney was a teacher. He was a Calypsonian. He was a sportsman. I think he played football, he played cricket for Santos and all those things. He was a sporting icon in the federation.
He also ran as a candidate on the PAM platform?
Eh?
He also ran as a candidate.
Yeah, also one of the candidates platform.
So he would have made his contribution on many, many levels.
I believe now they're going to put down a sporting thing up there in the village.
Mm-hmm.
A sporting complex in the village there, where Miss Byron says she's going to do. And I believe something like that for him, half a person like Irving Sweeney, because he was a very great sportsman in the federation. You understand? And in the village.
Yeah. So in sports, he would have made his contributions. In culture.
And in Calypso.
Because he was the main rival to Elimat back in the day.
Teacher.
Yeah. He was the main rival to King Elimat back in the day. It was Sweeney versus Elimat versus Sweeney. Keon had a few contributors, but those were the two main rivals.
And the former Governor Innis.
Innis, yes. Sir Probin.
I think if I'm with the West, if I'm Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
You understand me? A man named Mr. Allen, he was the governor. So I think
Mr. Blake mentioned Sir Milton P. Allen, our first governor. His name is there.
From Trinity in Poynton, Garvis.
Okay.
I think Mr. Allen was from Garvis, Poynton, Poynton. And I believe people like them supposed to be recognized because them start the foundation.
This is how we give our people an identity. But you reckon monuments that speak to our history as a people, we can relate to them because they are our people, our own ilk, and they will made a contribution.
And we got the Daysons, them in the village thing. We got the Daysons, them
I
from
will call the
West
Daysons,
Park,
yes.
You got Chris Dayson, you got Maurice Dayson.
I will call Eddie, actually.
You got Tony Dayson.
Mhm.
Those are our football icon. I believe those are people supposed to recognize. And you got some great people coming out of the village area too. You understand?
So we need you to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, man.
You have a contribution to make, not only because some people, you say, don't look down. You have, from your knowledge base, something to contribute to the table.
No, but you see, when you do these things, right? What I'm trying to tell you, when you do these things, the people who they know, who educated towards these things do, they won't come and be a part of this. They will try to make it political and look down upon you and say, oh, they're just joking. They made us this, they made us that.
Your
We
thing.
could never get together.
Your thing is to do your part. Just keep doing your part.
Yeah. Your thing is to do your part.
Yes.
You cannot study what people say, because if you study what people say, you will never get nowhere.
Precisely.
And listen, I on the radio here speaking, and when I start radio talk show on the radio, I used to be like a joke. Even sometimes when I hear myself, I used to say, man, I feel shame and all that. And now that I move from day to day, and people meeting me, commending me, and you know,
You are a respected social commentator. So what I'm saying, just do your thing. Just do your thing.
So we got to look more in our people in the past and let the young people them know. Because some of these young men and women who play football, playing tennis, playing this, playing that now, and playing netball, when they see Marcelo going down the road, or when they see Musgrave, Archibald going down the road, look at ladies, they never know she was a 14 netball icon, bring back world champion to sink it.
This is what this program is all about. To identify these persons and give them their due accolades.
Look at the old lady there. Look at the old lady there. But they don't know who the old lady is. See the old lady in the market. You see the young man there up the village, up Monkey Hill there, Miss Hapson. You see all those people walking around in the market. Yeah, look at the old lady. Look at her. You don't know that lady there was sinking netball captain. You understand? In the past. And these are the things young people supposed to know. We got to look up to our sporting icon and from the grassroots in them days and let the young people know what's going on.
Well, Zach Nisbet has been doing his bit in terms of trying to get some of the history, and I think he was on, it was Keon and Market Street. I think he has a new location.
Get back Brother Blake here.
We're looking at Monday after next. He should be back on the program.
Brother Blake, because Brother Blake is a real historian in this country.
Yes.
I saw them that Washi them got to pass, and Mr. Innis them got to pass, and I think much of these things where they say and where they done presentation they done meant. I hope some of these documents that they could play in the school and play other things that people could learn and people could know what went on in the past. Okay, the King, you have a wonderful day. God bless. Nice.
Thank you for your contribution, Mr. Politics.
All right.
August 1st. Until I think it was about up to 20 years ago, we used to celebrate what was called August Monday. And many a person didn't know what it meant. August Monday, big celebration. As a matter of fact, the Christina disaster, as we know it, that happened on August 1st. Well, it wasn't back then called Emancipation Day, where, okay, we'll take this call, but then get back to my point. Call your live on Voices.
Yeah, good afternoon, Socrates. Now you're talking about the neighbors thing. Just maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, Stevens Manners was on Win FM on Voices.
Yes.
Outlining the program for this year and what they are doing to record. Whitman Brown wrote 3 books. I bought them online, have them in my Kindle. The last one he did was 40 years after. And I think Stevens Manners and his group are doing. I think what is lacking is the St. Kitts End. Now there is a history club at the CFBC. And I think that the students there could be given assignments to do some of the work, because while we're talking, a lot of the work, the information is there, you know. I read a lot of the information at the public library. There is a thing called the West Indian section.
Okay.
You can find a lot of the information in books. You have the church in the West Indies, different things that give you information about emancipation, before emancipation. In St. Kitts, a lot of the information, the Moravians have a thing that goes back even in the 17-something, where the missionaries kept diaries. The Methodists also. I read information, and these volumes are at the ZAC has some, and the archives have some. But it is for our people to
go and show the interest in finding them and reading them.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody come, nobody telling them.
But it's
if
there.
you're interested, you get up.
It's
After
there.
I retire, I say, look, rather than sitting down and doing nothing, let me go and do some investigation about the village. I was born and raised in the village, and I had a lot of misconceptions. Because I thought the village started like one place, you know. And I know they have different villages, but when they started, it was vague. I saw some. And I learned so much. And I made it my business to investigate. And again, we like to brush aside people, they're talking old-time stories. So while we're complaining, we're contributing to the lack of knowledge.
That is true.
Yesterday, I had on, I think it's Winner for myself, another station. That I said it was. They did the OECS link. Did you listen?
No, I was in studio. I
They say it is online, so maybe you could check the OECS link.
Okay.
I think it is on also on YouTube, and they have their own thing. I learned so much about the what we call Bloody Point.
Yes.
I never knew. They did a section on it. I never knew. You know, they killed them, and we summarized. And they gave the numbers, where the Caribs came from, where they were sent. Some of them were sent back. You know?
Yeah.
I hope Emil Davis is listening, because he's a history thing like me. He could check it out online.
Some years ago, doing a certain Carib Festa, some of the...
I know when they came and so.
Yes, when they were
the
there.
information that they gave yesterday
Yes.
on the OECS link about the Carib thing, and they even talk about he had a son named Carib Thomas.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Thomas Warner's son. Carib,
yes.
Yeah.
You know, but I never heard what I heard yesterday. But a lot of the information about slavery, after slavery, they're in the archives, you know.
Yeah.
And somebody mentioned about the slaves that came to St. Kitts. They did not come after emancipation. They came after the end of the slave trade, which was 1807, I think it was.
Yes, I made a
Whenever
note
the
of that.
British captured the ship, I think about 600 Africans were brought to St. Kitts, because they were captured on the sea, right? And they were brought to St. Kitts. And the document did not say that they were put into slavery. So they were actually freed when they came here. Sometimes when I hear the reparation story, I usually say, who really is entitled, you know? Because it's a question where we still have to answer.
I don't think we'll actually find the true answers, because it's too vast. It covers so much of a territory and time frame.
Yeah, because as I said, some of them came here, were freed from the slave ships. And some came after. And Nevis itself has a lot of history, you know. And so somebody asked a thing about blacks being here before Columbus.
Yeah, that was a question raised, and the books that I've read
I
that
had a
speaks
young man
about
with
this
it.
here.
I mean, we got to be careful not to make up history too, eh? We could water it down, we could over-exaggerate it. But we must try and be factual. And I encourage people, if you are that interested, go up to the public library. There is a section called the West Indian section. The books are reserved, eh? You have to sign for them, sit down and read them. You cannot borrow them. But you can sit down and read.
Okay.
And if you go on to Amazon book with the Kindle,
yes,
I found even free books. There was one that has a detailed thing about the fight at Brimstone Hill, day by day account. A free book I pick up on Amazon in this thing with the Kindle. It is called Old West Indian tales or something like that. Lots of information. This thing about Columbus, they give you his log and what they did day by day and whatnot.
Okay.
These are available on Kindle. And a lot of the historical books are FREE free.
Yeah.
But love to read.
You have
They
to
just
have
are
the
said to be
interest.
the most intelligent because the oldest one, the poorest one, make sure they buy a newspaper. And the newspapers, they are struggling when all it costs is $2 for a newspaper. I used to buy the 4 when I could see. And I encourage people who have children, buy newspapers.
Well,
support the industry.
There's a
They will
saying that
they will learn something. You will learn something, and it helps to improve your vocabulary and your ability to read. All right then.
Thank you. There is a saying that rich, let's put that in brackets, people have large libraries. Poor people have large plasma TVs. Let me go over it again. Rich people have large libraries. Poor people have large plasma TVs. So, go figure. Yes, a lot of the history that we claim that we do not know or not told are there to be discovered. We go straight back to the lines. Call your live on voices.
King, I'm going to be quick. King,
Please. Yes, sir.
I'm like Old Clark. Right? I listen to Old Clark a lot. You know, right? Men might got political differences sometimes, right? But I'm like Old Clark know history too about this country. And sometimes he'll call in and talk about things that we Pam this and Pam that, you know, and me thing him. But I don't listen to him a lot. And I never criticize him about when he say about history, about thinkers. But every time Miss Sylvia Henry come on, as a teacher and educator, you know, politically they blame her and say all kind of manner thing about her. Cut off she phone.
But here's what.
Cut her off and so. And these things.
Here's what. I had occasion to ask Miss Henry on a given time in front of the market, why do you take all those insults? How come you take blah, blah, blah? And she says, Socrates, it's a strategy. They're trying to cut me off so the information won't get out. She said, I ignore them and I make my point. So they can cut me off as much as they want. My job is to share the information.
Sometimes she find different.
And she humbled me. She humbled me.
They engage in them and they engage in her. And they ain't want to last speak at all. They're choking and she's still fighting to get out what she want to get out the king.
And through it all, she called them my friend. My friend EK, my friend Junie. How she says, listen.
Listen, she's really a strong person.
Yes.
And if Sylvine was a younger person, and she wasn't in the condition where she into right now, I believe that she could have made a good prime minister for this country.
I see.
As a woman. That woman's strong, the king. And she know.
All hail, all respect to her.
She educated in the finance. She educated in different things. She history, she know. And she come on and she spell it out, whether you like or hate or not. And she go up and all the way to talk to them and she do it. But these is people we got to recognize. So,
okay. So
politically, you know, some people will take it different.
All right.
Because of what she said and how she think, who she think about. But I admire Old Clark a lot in this country. You understand? And people like Stanley Franks and those guys, and all that too.
They do.
And these are the people supposed to come out and let us know about our history, especially in the sugar industry, where our plantation owner and everything come from. These are people we got to really recognize and come out. Washi used to spell it out for us. I miss people like Washi. Anyway, the king, you take care.
Mr. Politics, thanks for your contribution once again. Okay, this is time for Station Baker. Do you have a call? Okay, we're going to pause for station, actually, word from our sponsors as we approach 21 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock on today's episode of Voices.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay 0 VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay 0 VAT on top of that. Yes, yes. Pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horswoods Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss it. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
And we go straight to the lines. Call 11 voices.
King Sakoti, how are you? Good afternoon.
You getting eventually, man?
Yeah, boy. Hey.
Talk to me.
King Sakoti.
Talk to me.
You know, I always admire Agnes Kerry. And, I mean, this criminal we had there who run this country for 20 years.
Easy jam down. Easy jam down. Easy jam down.
The criminal.
Easy jam down. Easy jam down. Let's be respectable. Come on.
To be good friends, you know.
Easy jam down. Easy jam down. Easy jam down. Easy jam down. Let's be respectable. Come on.
Little boy, your mother and your father sent you over by the drugstore.
That is correct.
To belly ache, head hocking, and she always finds something to give you.
Yes.
Sometimes you ain't got the amount of money, and she says, son, go home and give parents to look after you. And these are the kind of people we must recognize.
Jam down, not forget about Miss Kerry.
My good friend in St. Croix, Jacqueline, we have to do something down there.
I forgot about Miss Kerry.
For Mr. Puntin and Christina, something could be done down there. Well lighted, you understand? I like the suggestion with Kenny Georges and the housing project them there on Wellington Road. I think it's a very good idea. And Sakoti, that's the way you gotta go. You gotta come to the people to get the information.
Correct.
Because we put people in Parliament to look after us and do the right thing. And things that they should be doing, they ain't doing.
They get busy.
You understand?
So it's our job to look at these issues and bring it to their attention. So you can't blame them.
Sakoti, another thing. Who's Sante? Who's Sante?
Let me repeat. Did you hear? Did you listen to the program earlier?
I know the history.
It was a recommendation.
Tell us about that long time before you passed. Let me tell you something.
Go ahead.
Politics were just telling you about icon and
Yeah.
history. More like gone with the history of things in the time of year. You understand? Now, Sakoti, something really bothering me, and I want to share it with you. You see where we be on the circus bench?
Correct, yes.
We had a fire down there. And inspector, we should be looking out for. He got a vendor, a woman from Cairns, sell facing the bank,
Yes.
Royal Bank.
Yes.
A fire. You been scrabbling to get the thing moved. And see any you call the young officers them and tell her, hey, the woman move, she stop them, so we could get here clear. Why that fella act like a real idiot? Sorry to say that, but I warning the high command and the police force, you know. When they're promoting people to be in them kind of ranks, you must put people to understand the role. Mr. Commissioner, talking to you, playing to you, so that you're promoting fellas into certain rank and they just don't understand the job. Man, that fella, he gets so much people around here discuss, and they're very arrogant, you know. Mr. Officer, cool down on your temper. That ain't policing. Arrogantness is not policing. Sakuti,
Yes,
have
sir.
a good day. See you when I see you.
Okay, very impassioned contribution by John. I understand. He feels he contributes. He is a very concerned citizen, and I don't believe he was happy with the way that lady was handled based on his reaction. So let's hope calm heads, cool head can prevail. We got about 28 minutes down after the 1 o'clock hour, and we're coming to the closing episodes of today's program, Voices. It's been a pleasure. I must apologize for Mr. Blake, who was not able to make it back after the luncheon interlude. He had an appointment. He called, say he will try to make it back, but okay, let's see. We have what could be the last caller for the day, Lord? Okay, yeah, Mr. Blake is hoping to make it back the Monday after next, where we can continue our discussion. Call your live on Voices. Call your live on Voices.
Good afternoon, Secretary.
Yes, sir.
Did I get you? Secretary.
Yes, sir.
Let me say this. You know, history, we have a lot of history here in this country.
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's we to go out and get the history and make good use of it. Okay?
I'm with you.
Now, you know, I agree with the lady who talk about the houses up there in
Wellington Road.
Wellington Road.
Yep.
To name it up either Elimat or Georges. That is good. But let me say this before I forget. You know, the same program that Miss Henry was talking about, I heard it on ZAZ. And it is our own history. But I heard it when it coming to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear, I said, wow, good history. Right? And I hope that ZAZ, whoever is walking on that day, take the history there.
Well, she says it's online. It's the OES. It's online, according to Ms. Henry. It's the OECS link. You can actually log on and get the same information.
Yeah, but it comes to ZAZ. And, you know, a lot of people don't know how to log in that thing here. But it comes to ZAZ, and it is our station. And I believe whoever there should have taped it immediately. I can't tell you why. I got some history, and me and you going to talk about it.
Okay, be mindful. You got about 20 minutes. You got about 20 seconds because we at the bottom of the hour. We have to close the program today. So
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I got some history from Win FM. And as I heard it, I called Mr. Bacchus. And when Mr. Bacchus was kind enough to tell me, look, when some cities, and I run them free of cost. And I got them in some real good history about slavery.
All right. Thank you. You are actually the penultimate caller of the day. Today's program, Voices, we had a very spirited conversation earlier. The other section with Mr. Blake, Michael S. Blake, who promises to be back the following Monday after the one, if we can. We should be around August Monday around that time. Today is the 13th, so 2 weeks from now, we'll be close to that 50th anniversary of the dawning of the Christina and the tragedy that took 290 lives. I want to thank all the folks who were making the contributions, all our listeners on the various platforms. Thank you for being part of Voices today. I want to wish you all the best. Please, all people out there, COVID-19 is still out there and taking lives. I've noticed how people are a bit lax. They're relaxing, walking around without a mask and this and that. Please, wear your mask. This isn't a joke. It continues. I want to wish you all the best. Speak to you on another day. Bye.